We're going to talk about one of humanity's oldest and, let's be honest, most terrifying fears, being declared dead when you're not. There's this frightening gap between a doctor's official word and the actual biological reality. And as we're about to see, that gap is alarmingly wide.
Time of death, 10:42 p.m. I mean, those are some of the most final words you can hear, right? They draw this absolute line in the sand between life and whatever comes next. And when you hear those words, you just assume, okay, that's it. It's over.
But what if that declaration, made by a professional, was a mistake? Not because of anything sinister, just a simple, horrifying miscalculation. What if there was still a spark? This question, well, it's not just a plot for a scary movie. It happens in real life.
So to really get what's at stake here, I want to take you somewhere that's all about life. A place filled with noise, energy, and chaos. A stadium concert, where the music is so loud you can feel it in your bones.
Okay, so picture it. A massive stadium, just thrumming with music and thousands of screaming fans. It's the definition of life and energy. But right in the middle of all that, a young guy, not even 20 years old, just collapses. The concert doesn't stop, but for him and the paramedics rushing his way, the entire world has just ground to a halt.
The paramedics, they do everything right, everything by the book. They're doing CPR, they try the defibrillator, but nothing, absolutely no response. After they've tried everything they can, one of them has to make the call. And just like that, he's loaded into an ambulance, no longer a patient, but a body.
And right here, this is where that frightening gap we talked about just opens right up. He's on his way to the morgue, officially declared dead, and there's nobody left to check for one last faint heartbeat. And while this story is about one person, the situation itself, it's not hypothetical at all. In fact, the numbers behind these moments are just genuinely shocking.
You know that story from the concert? It's not just some tragic one-off incident, not by a long shot. Medical research has actually uncovered a really startling pattern that makes you question our whole definition of death.
So, take the work of Dr. Sam Parnia. He studied patients who had a cardiac arrest, what we usually call clinical death. And his research found that a staggering 18% of these patients were successfully brought back, almost 1 in 5. That is a huge margin for something we all assume is the point of no return.
And this problem goes way beyond the hospital. Get this. Some researchers estimate that in the United States, based on last-minute discoveries at morgues and funeral homes, as many as 35 people might be buried prematurely every single day. 35 families a day might be part of a tragedy they don't even know happened.
Now, to try and wrap our heads around that number, some sources say it could mean an error rate of 1 in every 50 burials. So for every 49 people laid to rest correctly, one person might have been sent there while they were still alive. It's just a horrifying thought.
And look, this isn't just some wild statistical guess. This comes from Mark Vollingworth, a man who spent 40 years in the burial industry. He personally saw cases where people woke up literally moments before burial. He said he became convinced that the few he saw were just the tip of a much, much larger and scarier iceberg.
And hey, if you're thinking this is, a modern problem, maybe something to do with our rushed, crazy world, think again. This fear is as old as civilization itself, and people have been trying to prevent this exact mistake for centuries.
We're talking centuries here. Way back in the 14th century, the Vatican started a 3-day waiting period for popes after one was nearly buried alive. This fear has touched famous people too, from a British Prime Minister, Benjamin Disraeli, to a young Benito Mussolini. And because of it, all these organizations popped up with names like the Last Attempt Society. Their one and only goal was to make absolutely sure, and get this, their work actually made a huge difference. One group in London saved over 2,000 people from being buried alive. The society in Hamburg saved over 100 in just 5 years. And you know what their solution was? Super simple. Mandatory waiting periods. Just a few extra days of watching and waiting proved that a little bit of doubt could literally be the difference between life and death.
So, okay, we've got the crazy anecdotes, the shocking data, the history, and all of it points to this one really unsettling gray area at the very, very end of life. And this is what it all boils down to: the gap. That terrifying window of time between a clinical pronouncement of death, when a doctor says they're gone, and true, irreversible biological finality. It's a period where we just don't know for sure and where a mistake is,
Well, the most horrific thing you can possibly imagine. So all of this, it leaves us with this massive question, one that science and society have been wrestling with for centuries. If the line between life and death is this blurry, how can we ever be 100% certain? It forces us to ask, what does it really mean to be dead?